You can't lock in because every time you wake up, the first thing you do is grab your phone, scroll IG for an hour or two, go on with your day. Every single moment that you're bored, you scroll IG some more. And then before you go to sleep, you scroll IG until you fall asleep. Sleep deprived when you wake up the next morning, just to repeat the cycle, wondering why you have no motivation or energy. I'm about to tell you four things you must implement to put an end to the scrolling for good and get your motivation and time back. So the first thing you need to do is figure out why you're scrolling in the first place. If it's social connection, there's usually some psychological need that needs to be fulfilled that if it's not being fulfilled as is in your day-to-day life, you'll find a way or you'll seek it in some sort of artificial form. So if it's social connection, plan a social life, build a social life. Or maybe you have friends, but you don't really actually take initiative to set plans with them on the weekends, stuff like that. If it's boredom, make life genuinely fun. What is it that you do on your day-to-day basis? If we were to just remove all these things, what would you do, right? Chances are you're an ambitious person if you're watching a video like this, so you have goals. Align yourself to these goals, because chances are that's one of the most fulfilling and fun things you can do is progressing in that, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is weigh out the pros and cons of scrolling. So when it comes to these bad habits, Instagram, chronic YouTube, or just internet browsing, right? Yes, they are detrimental, but there always is going to be some type of benefit to them. And because there's a benefit, your own brain will convince you to keep using them no matter what, even though you're conscious, even though you know that it's essentially holding you back, right? So what you need to do is get out a sheet of paper and actually write out the pros and cons, write out the benefits and the drawbacks so you can see it side by side. And then ask yourself, do these benefits outweigh the negatives? More often than not, they do not. So for example, with me on Instagram, one of the benefits, I get hella inspiration for more content to make. I dance so I get more ideas, or I'm a music producer, I get more ideas as well, right? What good is all of that if me being on Instagram prevents me from even executing those ideas in the first place? I realized this when 6 whole months went by of me telling myself that same thing, like, oh, nah, I get ideas from it. 6 months went by and I didn't make a single new video. So, list out the pros and cons and you'll catch on to your own bullshit, right? Now, there are some cases where you still absolutely need to use the app, and I got something for that at the very end. But before we get to that, the next thing you need to do, the third thing, kill the seeds. So you have to zoom in on the moments where the scrolling begins, not like in and of itself, but something that usually leads to the scrolling or makes it likely to happen. When you find out what that thing is, you remove that thing. You essentially want to make it hard as fuck to scroll in the first place. Common seeds, notifications. If you still have Instagram notifications on and you're trying to not be distracted by it, you're setting yourself up for failure off the rip. It's always going to be on your face every time you open your screen, home screen. It has a sound. So it's always in your face. Then it's easy as fuck to click it, sometimes even on accident, and boom, next thing you know, you're back in the app. Turn the notifications off and do the same for all of the other apps that distract you. I promise you don't need it as much as you think you do. And you'll notice a significant difference as time goes by in how much of an urge you feel in opening the app. Another common one is where you're using your phone. So like if you're in bed, a place associated with rest, and then you also have your phone with you, chances are you're not going to be productive in bed with your phone. You're going to go to YouTube, you're going to go to Instagram, whatever else it is that you use, TikTok, Snapchat, right? Kill the seeds. So set a restriction where you're no longer allowed to use the phone in the bed. In fact, when you go to sleep, it's better to have the phone across the room. Notifications off, notifications silenced. It's not as important as you think it is. Going on to the fourth thing, right? So as I said before, there are some cases where you still may absolutely need to use the app. You're a content creator or whatever else reason there may be, right? All you have to do in this case is set strong restrictions and actually stick to these restrictions. So if it's for content creation, right? What you're gonna do, or for all restrictions, right? You're gonna write down, again, on the same piece of paper that we were talking about, you're gonna create use only if conditions. You're gonna list the conditions, right? So this could be, I'm only allowed to open Instagram if I'm posting. And you can set multiple conditions that you can use it in. So only if posting, and only during scheduled. So if it's like you got to check messages or whatever, maybe it's like business or who knows, right? You can schedule specific blocks throughout the week. And I would keep it low as fuck, honestly, especially if this is like a serious problem. Once to twice a week, middle of the week, end of the week. Specific blocks where you're allowed to open, check, scan, screen, and that's it. And boom, back to your life. You want these apps to be a tool. You don't want it to be a whole, like a massive, like main part of your routine and day-to-day living, right? Same thing with YouTube. So another benefit, a strong benefit for YouTube is, aside from uploading, YouTube can be very educational. At the trade-off, it can also be very distracting as well. So a restriction could be use only if specifically learning something. So if you're just going about your life and there's a specific question or video or specific question or thing you want to learn, and there's a video or there's a creator who tends to cover that type of stuff, such as Black Swan, Lock In, come on now. All you got to do, so the restriction can be, I'm only allowed to open YouTube whenever I'm specifically trying to learn something. That something could be, anything, whatever it is, day to day. Not you're just bored and, I'm just going to go on YouTube for stimulation and like put stuff in my mind. No, you have to actually have a specific thing that you're curious about in your head, and then you can open it, right? Now, with all that being said, I honestly wouldn't even recommend doing that yet until you've at least done a 1 month detox. And the reason I say that is this will help you weaken the attachment to these apps first, and thus making the restrictions easier to follow when you get back on them. Right. But yeah, that's it. Apply those 4 things and you'll see a massive change in how you deal with these habits.